morning I am headed to a speaking engagement at a local high school to talk to the kids about drug, substance abuse. This is one of my favorite things in the world to do. I've never taken you guys along with me for a morning like this, so I thought, why not something different? I will post this speaking, the actual lead and my actual speech. But yeah, if you'd like to come along. Morning. It is currently 5 in the morning. And today we are speaking at a local high school. So, we gotta be up at the ass crack of dawn. School be starting mad early, man. One thing, if you don't already know this about me, if not my favorite thing to do ever in the world, is to speak to high school students about addiction. The dogs are outside going potty. I'm trying to think how many schools I have spoke at so far. I want to say this is like the 4th or the 5th. This is my first one this year. So wild, and social media hasn't done half of this just simply the way word of mouth has. And there's one speaking engagement specifically that I believe I got the majority of my word of mouths from, and I'm so grateful for that. So I don't know if I could ever do this for a living, is a question I get asked a lot. Mainly because I enjoy so much doing this for free. I do not charge for this. Whew! I get just as much out of this, if not more. The way in which I choose to share my story is very similar than the way I would share it in a speaker meeting in AA. That's mainly just because that's what I was used to. Just in terms of like the format of how I set up the lead and what I say. I just made a nice coffee. Here you go, girls. Sorry, I have something in my eye. It's driving me crazy and I feel like I'm taking my finger in my eye. We go on stage at 9:30. I'm gonna go upstairs and start doing my makeup. This is not anything I've ever vlogged before. And I just thought that you guys might enjoy something different. Girl, I don't practice. I don't rehearse. But we're gonna crush it, we always do, so. Let's do this. Super quick pause so that we can introduce today's video sponsor. I'm grateful for our sponsors as they help make our vlogs and our long form content happen. Today we are seeing more and more people who are overstimulated, they are unable to focus, feelings of sadness, hopelessness, even depression. As a lot of you know, I've had plenty of my own struggles with mental health. In fact, my poor mental health is what really ignited my addiction. Honestly, you guys, I struggled in silence with my mental health at a young age for so long that the first time I ingested a substance, you guys, I clung to that temporary fix. Inevitably, I further damaged myself, my health, and my life as a direct result of this coping mechanism, or lack thereof. And on top of that, if you're anything like me, I'm the type of person, I don't want to bother my family, my friends, my loved ones with my struggles, right? Because I know everybody has their own stuff going on, everyone's busy, and I don't want to bother other people with my problems, which can be a slippery slope because none of us are meant to fight these kinds of battles on our own. Therapy has helped me immensely. It has completely changed my life and turned my life around. With all of this being said, I am and always will be a firm believer that the more ways we can access therapy, the better off we are as a society. And that is why I chose BetterHelp as a sponsor of today's video. BetterHelp is a virtual therapy platform that will help match you with a therapist that best fits your needs, your lifestyle, and your struggles in a way that's comfortable for you. BetterHelp works on your terms in the comfort of your own home, in your own safe space where you feel most comfortable. First, you go to their site. You can use my link to help you get there easily. And then BetterHelp will ask you a few quick questions so that they can help match you with the perfect therapist that fits your needs best. Arguably, my favorite part about BetterHelp is that you can essentially shop for a therapist until you find one that works best for you. So rather than waiting a month, 2 months, 6 months, being on wait list, it can be so hard to find a therapist that works well for you, and it can take so long. You keep trying until you find a therapist that works for you, but it doesn't quite take as long as it would in traditional face-to-face therapy. I know it can be hard to simply make doctor's appointments and have to get on the phone. I know a lot of people don't want to have to make phone calls. BetterHelp could be the only reason somebody does seek therapy or reach out for help because of the way it's designed. It's huge. If this is something that you're interested in or something you feel you could benefit from, you can use the link I provided to head to BetterHelp's website and enjoy a discount on your first month. Thank you, BetterHelp, for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get back into our vlog. Okay, so I'm currently getting ready. I am filming a get ready with me video. Get ready with me is, especially when I'm doing something that I'm excited about, is a great way to update my following just on life and like whatever I have going on. Makeup routines or get ready with me's are a very big classic on my page. You guys can hang for a little bit of background stuff for a minute. I'm trying to think of like a transition to do where I'd start it now and then I would end it like with the kids. I've done that once before. I could not tell you the last time my skin looked this good. Like I really could not tell you the last time. Last time I spoke at a school, I gave away a newcomer chip. And that was one thing I meant to do because I don't think I have any more newcomer chips. All right, let's film a little bit. I like to think that maybe if there was somebody who looked like me that came into my school when I was in high school, you know. All right, that was a clip. It, you know, depends what it is. I've done some like pretty big like conferences and, you know, something more like that I would do like a pantsuit or more like business cash. But something like today, I like to appear more fitting in. When I dress very business casual to things like this, I don't want to come off too professional that I lose my relatability factor or any vibe that could offer comfort, if that makes any sense. I don't know. That's just personal preference, literally. I think I will still wear some heels, but I think I'm gonna do jeans. But the possibility that it could have been is enough to get me to continue to say yes to speaking engagements such as these. Oh. But the idea that it could have been is enough for me to continue saying yes to speaking engagement opportunities such as these. Come on, girl.
Good morning. Good morning. Get ready with me to speak at a local high school this morning. Tell these kids not to do drugs because it's bad.
Turn you guys off for a minute, take a break. I'll be back with hopefully lots more makeup done in hopefully a decent amount of time. So let's go. Speed fam. Update. Almost ready. My jeans are in the dryer because they had some wrinkles. I threw my shirt on so that I could finish my hair. I brushed my teeth. I do best when I kind of just like free ball my speeches. And so I never prepare for them, you know what I mean? Like the night, oh shit, I'm typing right now. So I never prepare for them, you know? Do I need more setting powder? I feel like I do. Feel that I do. If I read the email correctly, they're doing a live demonstration of a crash course, which I think is really cool. I'm going up in there telling them the truth, girl. Everything they need to hear. Some teachers and school workers understand how important that is and they appreciate it. Others are still naive to the fact and it's more of like this, oh my god, I don't want these kids to hear this. It's scary, they shouldn't know these bad things exist. We have to be realistic and understand that there's still a very large portion of society that would rather pretend like this stuff doesn't exist, not only to themselves, but even to their children, which is scary. It's an honor to be able to do that for these guys, for these kiddos. So lip liner will most definitely happen in the car. I'm gonna be really ballsy and I'm gonna try a different mascara today. Probably really should not do this. Okay, I don't think that's terrible. Right? I need to get some pants on. My little Charlotte Tilbury powder. Can we bring that? Oh, but I need to put my 6-year coin in the front of my big book. Here she is. Quickly finish my hair. And then I have a belt that I'm gonna put on this. And then I'm gonna actually do my Gucci kitten heels because why not? Do I want this buttoned or zipped all the way? This thing got me this beautiful necklace for my 6 years. I also got this 6 charm for my 6 year, and I want to put this 6 charm on there. Okay, does this look good? Slicking back your hair, in my opinion, for the girls is absolutely considered a workout. It requires so much strength and so much of your muscles. Okay, a little bit of Terry Mugler Angel. Oh, there you go. I don't know where it is. Shit. I really gotta go here. Must leave with the bed made. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. Okay. The dogs are barking their heads off. I'm so excited, it's so beautiful. Oh, also my newest book that I'm reading, so excited, The Psychology of Money. Highly recommend. Nice belt, huh? I just needed like a good, classy, universal belt, you know? Can we see the final fit? The shoe. And I'm gonna throw on my 6 necklace, throw on lipstick, and we will be good. Okay, let's go. I think I have everything in this bag. Oh my God. Okay. We have arrived, fam. I really need to get in there, but I just wanted to let you all know that I have already embarrassed myself severely. Biggest issues with these events is, these speaking events, is they never tell you where to park. And there's always 85 entrances. 855, okay. Oh, and then are the earrings that I wanted in here? Oh my God, they are. Now let's switch. All right, gotta slow down now. Slow down so that we don't walk in there like a hurricane. God, may you walk in the door before me. May you let my words just come to me so naturally. May they hear me. Let my words be powerful. Let my words resonate. And let this speaking engagement opportunity lead to more opportunities in the future. Oh my God, I'm gonna smell like the beach. I brought my 6-year coin in my pocket. I like to hold it in my hand while I speak. It is no other time but show time. I found hand sanitizer to get all the foundation and stuff off my hands, but it also has a beachy scent, so I'm just gonna smell like the freaking beach. All right, girls, it's time to do this. I love you guys. Talk soon.
Event that transpired on the 10th of May at or about 4:30 a.m. in the morning. The first charge was on a vehicle while driving under the influence of alcohol. And
a lot of coordination, many meetings, many hours, and it is extremely appreciated. Students put a tremendous amount of time into this. We don't want to see this happen to anybody, not just prom time, not any time. We don't want to see a tragedy. Next part of our assembly is we have a speaker. Her name is Abby Fickley, and she is a single sober mom, and she's here today to share her story with us. And I want to let you know how I became to know about Abby. 2 Februaries ago, I attended along with Lindsay Gabrosic and Lily Shakedown. We went to the Council on Substance Abuse and Youth Conference, and it's sponsored by Westmoreland County Drug and Alcohol Commission. And Abby was a speaker there. And these two individuals were so moved by her story that they immediately asked if this year if we could have her back and we could have her at high school. So I just want to share that with you, that it's because of the two presidents of the club that I reached out to Abby, and she's going to share her story with you now. So once again, please give your undivided attention. And Abby, do you want all the hot lights on?
You know what? Sure, whatever you think is best.
45.
Okay.
that okay? Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for bearing with me. Thank you for having me, first of all. I appreciate that introduction. It was very, very kind. This is one of my favorite things to do, to come speak, to share my story, to talk, and especially for people of your age group, because I just feel like if someone like me was in my high school when I was, freshman, junior, senior, whatever, it may have made a difference for me. And that is enough for me to continue to do this and enjoy it so much. So again, my name is Abby Fickley. This past April, on the 24th, I celebrated 6 years free of the grip of addiction and alcoholism. I want to say, thank you. I didn't get to see the entire presentation this morning. I did see, and what I did hear from what happened this morning, I just want to say, especially to the students who participated, I have so much respect for you for putting that together. I mean, it's just so incredible, and as the years go on, to see high schools just do more and more to just teach you guys and show you guys the reality. It's not fun, it's nothing, it's hard to watch this kind of stuff. It's serious, it's not very pleasant, but unfortunately, it's reality. And so I'm going to share a little bit of my story. What we kind of do here is I share what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. It's a similar format as to what I would do if I were to be in what we call an AA meeting. Raise your hand if you know what AA or NA is. Do any of you know what that is? Have you been familiar? Okay, quite a bit of you. With the disease of alcoholism and addiction, luckily there's a cure, but we do consider this a disease. A disease is something we categorize as fatal, progressive, and chronic. Similar to somebody who may have diabetes, they need insulin. Addiction is classified as a disease, and there is a solution. Unfortunately, the solution for alcoholism addiction is a day-to-day process. It never ends. You don't get to do one treatment and heal from it. It's something that you have to work at every single day. And the idea of something like the program of AA or NA, which by the way is not the only solution, but it's a big one and it's what saved my life, and I'm going to share my experience, is that it's quite the phenomenon. Do you guys know what a phenomenon is? Can anybody provide me an example of a phenomenon? Anyone? So I'm going to give you a couple here. Number one, yawning. You ever yawn or your friend yawns and it makes you yawn? See, I see right there. It's something that we know happens. I could be on FaceTime with somebody who's across the country from me. I could yawn on FaceTime and it could make them yawn. In fact, although we have no scientific proof on why this happens, there have been some pretty cool studies that have been done on this, but there's no proof on why this happens. It's a phenomenon. Another one, domesticated cats are the only cats that purr. That's a phenomenon. We know that's the truth, that only domesticated cats purr, but we have no scientific proof on why that is. It's not a phenomenon. AA and NA and the program of it is a phenomenon. Because when one addict or alcoholic tells their story and shares it to another alcoholic, and when they thoroughly follow the process, the steps, the way they are designed, rarely do we see people fail. It's a phenomenon. We have no scientific proof on why this works. However, we have seen it over and over and over again. 1 in 8 children live in a household of addiction or alcoholism. That's a lot of people. And I'm sure maybe some of you in this room have experienced it, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt. And as they were saying on the stage earlier, it affects everybody. I was one of 3 children. I was the baby. My siblings were a bit older than me, so there was a bit of an age gap, right? So for example, by the time I got to high school, they were off to college, and it felt very much like I was an only child. That was the dynamic of my life, right? But to back up a little bit, I had a good life. I mean, we were privileged in the sense that we had everything we needed. We did not struggle. if I wanted to participate in a sport or do something with my friends or get a new pair of shoes, my parents were able to do those things for me. My mom and dad are still together to this day. I came from a good home. I did not come from a household of addiction, of alcoholism. In fact, I didn't even know any extended family members that had ever struggled with the disease of addiction. So my life, from childhood to high school, it was good. I had a good group of friends. I was a competitive cheerleader. It was my life. I was a gymnast. I had hobbies. I hung out around good people. I had good friends. I was absolutely on the up and up for quite a while there. I was never good at school. I never liked school. I did graduate, but with the help of my friends. So just to fast forward a bit, I continued on with the hobbies and the things I enjoyed. I continued on with cheer and gymnastics and the things that I loved and my passions. Of course, I had dreams. And for me, I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I wanted to do hair. Those were my passions. I enjoyed all things hair, makeup, beauty, right? And it's funny because my mom's a doctor. She's since retired, but my mom is a doctor and she was the chair of the undergraduate nursing program of Carlow University. And I knew deep down she wanted me to be a nurse. My sister would go on to have her PhD in epidemiology. So there's my mom and my sister, they're both doctors. My father's an architect, my brother went into computer science. So when I decided I wanted to go to beauty school, I felt like it wasn't good enough. I felt like it wasn't good enough for my family. I felt like it wasn't good enough for my parents. And I always say that. I always kind of had that thought, but it's so funny because when I told my parents what I wanted to do and what my dreams were, they fully supported me. Like nobody was disappointed that I wanted to go off to beauty school. I think hindsight, when I look at it now, I really blamed them for not feeling good enough when it really was coming from, inside. So nonetheless, I would go on to go to beauty school. I did graduate beauty school. However, just to back up a little bit, I partied, in high school. We did all the things, nothing super out of control. I never really got into trouble. It wasn't till towards the end of senior year where things would get a little bit rough. That's when I began drinking a lot more. My dad had a bar in the basement. I would, drink from his bottles. I'd be like replacing bottles of like Jack Daniel's whiskey with water. Like he was gonna believe that. But that's how we would supply the alcohol. We would kind of hang out in my basement or really wherever we could, and we would just like drink and kind of have fun. And then this eventually escalated to I would do this before I would cheer Friday night football games. And it quickly became something for me that made everything more fun, right? I look back at a time when my mom was kind of just down on me about cleaning my room, just clean the room, get it done. I would, throw everything in my closet, shut the door, and she was just like hounding me over it. And I just didn't want to, and so finally, I go downstairs, I take a can of Coke, I crack the can, I dump half it out, I fill the other half with some of my dad's liquor, I take that can of Coke up to my bedroom, close the door, put the music on, and start cleaning my room. I'm in high school. I was a senior in high school, and I was already utilizing substance, aka alcohol at this time, to get things done. So this would turn into a pattern, this would turn into a habit, but again, at the time, I didn't see it, I thought nothing of it. It's hindsight that I look back and I'm like, I really needed that alcohol just to clean my room. It's wild, but the way I started to utilize it for basic, everyday things, it was no longer just to party and have fun with friends, right? And when we talk about the disease of addiction, I can be one of the first ones to admit that before I was fully educated or had gone through anything myself, I was one of those people that would say, well, just don't do it. Like if you know it's bad, if you know you can get addicted to it, if you know, getting behind the wheel when you're drunk could cause an accident, just don't do it. And there was a lot of the disease aspect of it that I didn't understand. I didn't understand that me and a friend could both choose to experiment and try something new on the weekend, and we could each do the same, substance or drink the same drink or whatever it be, and have two entirely different reactions, right? And we have no idea how our body, our mind is going to react to that substance or that drink until the first sip or until we take the first one. And so one thing I noticed early on, I didn't understand it, but I noticed early on was that we could party and we could have fun, me and my girlfriends, and when it was over for them. They were able to move on, and they were able to chuck it up as last night was a lot of fun. That concert performance was really good. But for me, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with whatever that substance was that we ingested to make that concert more fun or to make that party more fun. I would obsess over it. And I could never understand why they weren't doing the same thing. Because I wanted more. I wasn't done. I wanted to go get more. I wanted the party to keep going. They were okay with the party ending. And so there's something to be said about the way we all react entirely differently once we ingest a substance or take a drink. And it's another reason why education is so important. And in addition to the education behind what drinking and driving can do and what substance abuse can do, it's also important to understand that there are resources and there are tools, right? So I spoke a little bit on the program, which is what saved my life, the 12 steps, AA, the big book, which is the Alcoholics Anonymous book that just talks about the concepts and the way we get sober. But there's so many other things that are important to know too, and especially as time goes on and more things are accessible to people, but there's harm reduction. There's Narcan, which can reverse an overdose. 18 years and older, you can walk into a pharmacy and you can ask the pharmacist for Narcan. Depending on the pharmacy, sometimes it's free. It's something that I believe everybody should have in a lockbox in their home, because not all overdoses happen when people are intentionally abusing a substance. There are so many scenarios in which somebody can overdose. Mixing two incorrect things unknowingly can cause an overdose. There are so many things. So just understanding what's out there, understanding the resources that are available to you is very important. And it may not even be for you. Maybe a friend, maybe a family member. Another really big thing I wanted to quickly touch on as I watched you all watch the presentation, that I just can't get over how incredible that was. One of the biggest things that I did, or one of the biggest ways I behaved or acted, I guess, whenever I was in any scenario like this, which wasn't often. I mean, we didn't get anything like this in high school. We had the DARE program in middle school where a cop made us sign a form, don't do drugs, sign at the dotted line. In fact, my mom still has my DARE certificate. My parents hung it on the wall to be jerks, but really, it was funny. So for me, I was one of those people, you know what, I'm listening, but this will never be me. Like, this will never happen to me. I would never do this. It's so out of sight, out of mind for me. It's like I can comprehend some of the information you're telling me. Somebody's in front of me talking about alcoholism, addiction, drinking and driving. I hear you, but it doesn't matter, because this is never going to happen to me. I would never do that, is what I said. I have totaled 4 cars drinking and driving. I shouldn't even be standing here. All of my friends from back then are in 2 places, 6 feet under or in jail. Everybody who I know today is a part of my new life. I can't even count how many funerals I've been to. I can't count the amount of people that were way too young to bury. Some of those from overdoses and some of them from drinking and driving. I am so fortunate that I never hurt another person. I am so fortunate that I wasn't hurt. Each and every time I've totaled a vehicle drinking and driving, I would either crash into a tree or some sort of scenario that did not involve hurting another human, by the grace of God. It was said up here earlier, one decision can change your entire life. So to move forward, high school is when we started partying, like I was saying. And what I began to do was drink before I would, be on the sidelines cheering on Friday nights, because again, it made it more fun. And eventually I would quit cheer completely. I started to get in trouble with my coach. I was under the influence, literally in the air, in stunts on the field for halftime performances. It was just getting a little bit out of control. And so I ended up quitting cheer, which, like I said, I had done my entire life, senior year, as a direct result of substance abuse. And sure, I wasn't addicted to anything yet. I wasn't an alcoholic, but alcohol was affecting my life so severely already. And still at this point, I didn't realize it. And so to fast forward, I go to beauty school, I'm dating a guy out of convenience because he, was doing things that I was doing and we were doing things together and, it was just all out of convenience. 3 months into this relationship, I find out I'm pregnant. Now, one thing about this man who I was dating is he had been my best friend for many, many years. I had known him for a really long time. So although we had only been dating for 3 months, this was somebody who I had a really solid friendship foundation with. And so we had reached 19 years old. I was in beauty school. He was doing nothing. We had each graduated high school, and here I am, pregnant. So I would go on to have my daughter, Mila, and we tried the whole white picket fence thing. I'm not even of age to drink or rent a car, and I'm raising a human. I did graduate beauty school pregnant. I passed my state boards pregnant, and I got my first salon job pregnant. My first salon job was a very high-end salon, a lot of really respected clients, and it was a very intimidating atmosphere. The stylists were intimidating. I was an assistant, trying to work my way up. And so my job was very, very high stress. And additionally, I was a brand new mom, trying to create this white picket fence out of a situation, a dynamic that was just impossible. And I want to note too, although I say I was raised in a home where we were fortunate, my parents were still together, it was full of love, it still had its issues. I was raised in a Catholic church. I would hear things in the church and then I'd see how people would behave outside of it. I became incredibly resentful of that. My family was very much the type, make it all look good as long as we look good to the world. And I cannot tell you in words how far I internalized that. That is something I still deal with. Right? It's being more concerned with how I appear than how I actually feel. In fact, at one point when I went to treatment, because I'd been to treatment so many times, it didn't work for me the first time, I was told by a therapist that if I continue to allow my ego to run the show, and if I continue to care more about my appearance than what was really happening to me, that I was going to die. And she looked at me dead in the eyes and she said, it's people like you who die because they don't get the help they need. I hid everything so deep down and I made everything look so good on the outside because that's what I was used to. So I was diagnosed with extreme postpartum depression before my daughter was even 1. My mental health is a huge part of my story. In fact, mental health and poor mental health happened for me before addiction happened. So postpartum depression, super intense. I'm working a salon job. I go to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist to get help, and I'm prescribed a bottle of benzos. So this is it for me. I took one of those pills, and it eliminated every issue that I had been facing for the past, almost year. And when I tell you I clung to that it was off to the races from there. It entirely started my addiction. And another thing that I didn't understand about benzos was that mixing them with alcohol is quite literally a death sentence. It truly is. It's one of the most dangerous combinations that exists. And unfortunately, that's what I was doing. So I would take my benzos, and then, I'd go out with my friends and I would drink, and this is when wrecking cars would happen in my life. So being prescribed something legally by a doctor, mixing that with alcohol, having no idea the consequences of that combination, again, education is just so important because that caused a lot of issues in my life. So to move forward, the father of my child and I would split when our daughter was only 1. I moved back in with my parents, and we attempted to co-parent 50-50. I really went downhill from here. I don't do well living with my mother. I love her to death. She's my favorite person. I cannot live with her though. And so we had a lot of issues. There was a lot of fighting. At this time, I was introduced to further pills. I was introduced to opiates at this time. And so I kind of was dabbling with that. But still at this point, I had no experience with becoming physically dependent to a substance yet. Things got pretty bad. Again, I'm wrecking cars. I'm not being the best mother. I'm just really, really struggling. And eventually my parents gave me an ultimatum, go to treatment or we're pressing charges. I'm getting ahead of myself, but they did tell me I had to go to treatment or they would no longer be in my life. Wrong ultimatum. That one happens later. There's a lot of pieces to my story that I'm going to skip over because truly it is like here, there, and everywhere. I'm one of the people that ran for myself geographically, didn't understand that wherever I went, there I was. So for a year or two, I went from California to Pennsylvania, to California to Pennsylvania. If I would make a big mess, I would run back home. Things would blow up at home in Pittsburgh, I'd run back to California. I continued to run for myself, and I continued to leave the messes for my family and my loved ones to clean up. So I did go to treatment that first time my parents gave me that ultimatum. I didn't go because I felt that I needed it. I wasn't even physically dependent to anything. In fact, I still believe that maybe I needed more mental health treatment. But it's neither here nor there. I went to treatment because I wanted my family back. Unfortunately, I chose to hang out with the wrong people that first time I went to treatment. And this is when I would be introduced to the substances that would just send my life in a downward spiral within days. So in treatment, I was introduced to new substances, new opiates, and a new way to ingest them into my body. Very, very dangerous, very, very addictive way. And so I quickly learned what it was like to be physically dependent to a substance. I had never experienced anything like it. It was absolute hell. And this was after a little bit of sobriety time that I gained in California, but it was just so confusing to me because I couldn't understand how I was able to build this beautiful life out here in the state of California, but my daughter's across the country in Pittsburgh. So even when I would have success, it was so hard for me to maintain it because I didn't understand it. I knew I wanted to be a mom, and I knew my daughter needed me. I handed over custody, my half of custody, to my mom and dad when I was in California because my daughter deserved better than me, and I knew that. And I wanted my family to take part in raising her. So I did that. I continued to try to get better. To make a long story short, one of the times I came home to Pennsylvania because I, made a mess out there. I moved back in with my mom and dad. I was sober, but I just had no tools. At this point in the game, I had done rehabs, I had done spiritual-based treatments, I was introduced to the program of AA, but I didn't work it in the way it's designed. I'd go to meetings, I'd be a sponsor, I wouldn't call her, it was very willy-nilly. So I would gain these temporary spurts of sobriety time, right? So here I am back in Pittsburgh living with my parents. I don't even think I lasted a month before I started using again, right? And at this point, I had this really weird justification with myself, this is what we do when we're in active addiction. We make these really crazy things up, and my thing was, I'm not gonna touch this substance. I'm only gonna do this one. And that to me was like, oh, I'm doing really good, I'm doing well. But the problem was the substance wasn't cheap, and I couldn't afford it. I was working a serving job at P.F. Chang's at the waterfront at the time, wasn't enough money. And so I began stealing my dad's checks, and I was writing checks to myself from my dad's bank account. My morals, my values, and who I am as a person would never do something like this. In fact, even in addiction, I didn't steal from people. It's just not a part of who I am or how I was raised. But when you are in active addiction and when you are physically dependent to a substance, the things you are willing to do to get these substances, and it's not even to get high anymore. It's to get out of bed and potentially get a shower. It's to give you a 6-hour window to maybe get to work or get a couple things done. It is hell. It is absolute hell. And it literally all roots from basic decision making back when I was graduating high school. It's a very formative time, If you guys come here, we learn a lot in high school. We learn math equations that sometimes we'll never use again. Maybe some of them you'll use in college and it'll help you get the degree that you dreamed of getting, right? There's things that you learn that you're gonna carry forever. There's things that maybe you won't use so much. What you guys have learned this morning, what you guys have watched, will forever be one of the most important lessons and one of the most important examples of what can happen and the consequences that you can face with one bad decision. And again, education and understanding is the number one way to avoid, right? And also, God forbid, friends, family, loved ones, having the tools and knowing where to go or who to call if necessary, right? And so I'm writing these checks out for a couple months, and I knew everything was gonna blow up in my face. I didn't have the courage to go to him, go to my dad, go to my mom and say, hey, I'm really, really struggling again. You know, at this point I'd probably been to maybe 5 rehabs. And so I think maybe I got away with this for 3 months or so, and every time my dad would call my phone, I was just waiting for it to be the dreaded call. And eventually it was. He called me one day, and I knew it was real snowy, all the roads were bad, nobody was going to work this day. And I'm sitting in my room, I had this little house in Monongahela that my parents had got for me, and that's another big part of my story. My parents didn't know how to deal with this. So, you know, they enabled me a lot, especially in the beginning. And of course, they didn't understand that they were doing that. They loved me, they wanted to help me. It took them a while to understand not only that they were enabling me, but also what can they do? How can they help me? It's actually beneficial. So, you know, they had their own process throughout these years of my struggles. And I got this call, and my dad tells me that he went to pump gas, and his car declined. And my parents work very hard, and it's not something that would typically happen to them. And so he tells me that he's at PNC Bank, and he has every single check I've ever forged printed out in front of him. And he said, you need to go to rehab, or I'm pressing charges against you. And so obviously I'm choosing rehab, right? Not that I wanted to go, just honestly because I had given up. Like, I was really at the point, I had decided a long time ago that I was just kind of meant to be a pretty corpse, AKA just die young, you know? And I really had lost all faith in myself and any ability to heal or get better. And especially when you're in like the deepest grips of this stuff, it's almost impossible to see the light or to see any way out, right? So I had nothing left for myself, it was over for me. So I didn't see any actual real healing and treatment, plus how many times have I done it and not seen any success, right? Ironically, this would be the first time I would actually go to treatment here in Pittsburgh. Every single time I had to go to rehab, I'd fly out to California. Well, this time I had lost everybody. All of my friends in California, the marketing director of the treatment program that would get me on a plane and fly me out there anytime I, you know, blew things up here or relapsed or whatever. Everybody cut me off. Nobody would get me back out there. Nobody would buy me a plane ticket. I remember freaking out on my buddy Charlie, who's a really big part of my story. He has since passed as a direct result of this disease. In fact, he died drinking and driving on a motorcycle. And so I was very angry at Charlie for not buying me that plane ticket, not getting me back out there. And of course, hindsight, what I realize now is Charlie's a really big part of saving my life, because I know he loves me and I know he wanted, you know, me to come back out there, but he knew what was best for me. And I didn't at the time, right? So anyway, everybody cut me off. Nobody would get me back out there. So I had to go to a treatment center in Pittsburgh. I started to lose all my options, right? And so I go to this treatment center at Greenbrier in Washington County. I had nobody to call, nobody to pick up the phone. I mean, this was the end, you know? I had spent my stints in jail. I had, you know, woken up in holding cells, again, you know, from the drinking and driving. I remember the cops calling my parents at the police station, hey, come get your daughter, and she's here, and my mom and dad said, no, put her in jail. You know, so I had a couple short stays there, and, you know, so here I am in treatment, which is exactly what they say with these, you know, this disease is it ends in jail, institution, and death. And it's the truth. And so I have been institutionalized many times between jail, rehab, psych wards, Western psych, done it all, seen it all, been in it all, okay? I don't know if it helped me or hurt me, but I go to this Greenbrier Treatment Center in Washington. I have no intent on getting sober, staying sober. I just don't want to go to jail. So I do this for this ultimatum. I go to this 30-day treatment center. I am about 28 days in, getting ready to graduate, and I have this like pep in my step for the first time in a really long time. I was like, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do this. I had an aftercare plan set up. Of course, like I said, everybody cut me off. So I had this aftercare plan where I would go to this sober living, Pittsburgh sober living. It was this. Not so pretty looking house. I probably had a dealer a couple houses down. I'll tell you one thing, it was not the sober livings from Orange County, California. Humbling. So I'm 28 days out, they're doing mail call and they call my name. And I'm like, no. He's like, yeah, this is you. I said, no, I'm not going to send an email. You got the wrong girl. He's like, Abby Fickley. I'm like, all right. So I take this letter, I go back, and I sit in the back of the room, and I get it out of the envelope. This is a 3-page typed letter. It's signed at the end by my father, basically disowning me. We are done. This is the last time we pick up your mistakes. We have sacrificed relationships with your siblings, with everybody for you. You have destroyed everyone's lives. This is a family disease. And I did. I hurt a lot of people. And so this letter basically went on to say he was done with me, they took me off with their health insurance, and they cut me off in every way possible. And in the grand finale, on the final page of this letter, it read, and by the way, I decided to go through with the charges anyways. So here I am, 28 days sober, feeling good, for the first time in a long time. And now I'm finding out that I'm facing 7 counts of forgery, identity theft, and theft by unlawful taking, which was, I was looking at a minimum of 7 years in prison. So of course I just immediately start running around the treatment center with this packet. I'm going up to the techs, the nurses, I'm like, what does this mean? I wanted somebody to tell me what was gonna happen. I wanted somebody to look at me and say, hey, don't worry, this is all gonna work out, you're not gonna go to jail. Or hey, you might do 1 year, but you're not gonna do 7. Your daughter's gonna know who you are. I wanted somebody to just tell me what was gonna happen, but nobody could do that, you know? So I leave this rehab, I graduate, I go to this sober living where there are 8 strangers, 8 women that I didn't know. You know, I was on blackout for 3 days, couldn't go anywhere, my cell phone was turned off, I called T-Mobile crying. And I said, I just got out of rehab, I'm trying to stay sober, can you please turn my phone back on? I promise I'll pay you soon, I'm begging you. This woman turned my phone back on. I will never forget that woman from T-Mobile who turned my cell phone back on when I had no money. And so, you know, there's a lot to be said about this process because there was a lot of faith that had to be involved in this, right? Like, I didn't want to do this. My way of getting through hard times and problems was using, and now here I am in a position where I cannot use. I'm facing not only these felony charges, but I'm also on probation for something else, which was a huge blessing for me. To know that this woman could show up at any given moment with a drug test was so helpful for me. I needed a lot of accountability. And so I'm gonna try to wrap this up because I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but you know, this took a little over a year to entirely unfold. I lived in a sober living for a year on the dot. So let's say about 6 months in, I became a house manager. So I was a house manager for about 3 months, and then right at a year, I got my first tiny little apartment. It was a loft, there was no living room, it was just literally one room, kitchen, bed, bathroom. And I would promise my daughter, you know, she would stay with me, but I didn't have physical custody back of her yet, but she'd stay with me, and I'd promise her, and I'd say, hey, one day I'm gonna get you a bedroom. How are you gonna decorate it? What do you want it to look like, you know? She wants it to be Frozen themed. She's living the dream in her head. She's thinking about what she's gonna do, and I'm making these promises, and I'm going to meetings, and I'm trying my best. The difference this time was, I had to do everything the proper way, or they were going to kick me out of this house. The accountability was so real. I also had to pay rent. So I went downtown, I walked into a random restaurant, I asked for a job, and the guy hired me. I told him my story. I ended up working for him for 6 years. If any of you know me from social media, you know Mason. He's a big part of my story, and I talk about him a lot. But so I'm paying rent, and that's sober living, and that really taught me how to like live life again and be an adult again, right? So at the time that I was able to move out and get that first little loft, I was at 1 year sober, which was insane for me, incredible. And you know, I'm working at this restaurant, and I'm caring for my daughter. 1 lease later, my landlord reached out that the bottom of the duplex was available. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And so we moved in down there, and my daughter got to decorate her bedroom Frozen themed. And so the poor kid had to wake up an hour early so that I could drive her to kindergarten in the morning. And, you know, she was just such a trooper, and she was just so proud and so happy. And it just, I'm very grateful for that. 1 lease later, I found a house that I could afford. I was renting it. And we would end up living here for quite a few years. And this would be really where my social media journey started, when I began my public speaking and all of these things. But I would not have made it as far as I did without community, without therapy, without honesty, And if I would not have crushed my ego or buried my ego would have absolutely buried me. And that's a huge part of this. Humility, letting go of the ego and the pride, not being afraid to reach out for help when you need to. But back to what I said when I was the one sitting in your chair, which was, okay, cool, but it'll never be me, so it's all good. I even remember when I was in rehab, we were doing a relapse prevention class, and I'm thinking, all right, cool, but it won't be me. I ended up becoming a chronic relapser. And so here we are today in October of 2023. I bought a house for my daughter and I. We have 2 dogs. And a really beautiful life. And it's truly all thanks to sobriety. And it's thanks to you guys, people like you, who allow me to stand up here and speak. This kind of stuff helps me, maybe even more than it helps you, I don't know. But I can't thank you guys enough for listening to me and for having me here today, because please understand that every small decision you make paves another brick to whatever journey, whatever road, whatever path you end up taking in life. And sure, it may not be you, but maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member. So I hope that somebody, got something out of this today. I so appreciate your time, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Also, because I have to jump around so much with this, because my story is just so crazy, if you guys have any questions, or if there's any pieces of my story, big one. I'll say this before I go. I'll tell you guys like a very intense part of it, and then I'll never tell you what happened. And it's like, we just left this hanging. Let me just tell you what happened with the charges, and then we'll wrap this up. Again, I continue to remain sober. I continue to do the right thing. This journey is what brought me closer to God, because I was tired of waking up every morning and physically puking. I was so sick and so worried that I was going to face these 7 years. My daughter wouldn't know who I was. What's the point of staying sober? There was so much just like darkness ahead of me, and I had no idea what was going to happen. My family lived 10 minutes down the road and wouldn't speak to me. It was such a strange concept. But what it did was it forced me to really build a relationship with those girls in that house and my sponsor. I was pushed into a corner that I needed to be pushed in, And so, by the grace of God, and only because of sobriety, by the time that hearing and that court date came, my mom and dad and I had been in a little bit of communication. I remember we went to my daughter's preschool orientation together, then we went to Steak and Shake after, and that was like the biggest deal for me. I would call my sponsor on the way there, I'm like, how do I act? What do I do? I'm about to have dinner with my parents and it was just so new and so scary. And so we were starting to talk again. Then court comes. To make a really long story short, my dad, and only because of my sobriety, my dad ended up hiring a lawyer on my behalf, and my dad fought the charges alongside me. Because even if my dad were to drop those charges, it wouldn't have mattered. The state would have picked them up because of the severity. So my dad hired a lawyer on my behalf, and he stood next to me, and we fought the charges together. And we got all of those counts, all of those felonies dropped down to 1 misdemeanor theft charge. By the grace of God, never got a felony on my record. And again, even misdemeanors, it will affect your life. When my daughter was in 1st grade, I couldn't volunteer at her school. I can't even tell you how that felt for me. Now fast forward to, I should say kindergarten that was, actually. And now here we are today. I'm going into my 4th year as youth cheerleading coach. I'm a cheer board member. I volunteer at my daughter's school. I found out yesterday that I got picked to go on the field trip. Excited about that. But somebody like me, imposter syndrome is a really big part of this, even being in a high school, because somebody like me, coming from the places I did, seeing things I've seen, and surrounding myself with people I have, it's a literal miracle that I'm standing here today. And I just want you guys to make good decisions for your lives. If there is somebody in your life who maybe has substance abuse issues or is affecting you in one way or another, please do not be afraid to reach out. Whether it be a guidance counselor, a teacher, there are people that can help you. You guys all deserve to chase every single dream you have and achieve it. So please, make good decisions, Thank you again. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for having me.
I hope that wasn't too long. Okay, oh good, okay. Speech is over. We're at the luncheon with the kiddos in the library. Okay, I just ate with the girls. Can't really film much, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not gonna walk around with my digital camera in the library at the school, but I just ate lunch with some of the girls, chatted with them, talked about their plans after high school. They're all seniors, they're literally graduating in like less than 2 weeks, and they're telling me about what they're doing, and met some teachers that came up and thanked me, which was so kind, and everybody's just been phenomenal. So it's been a great experience. I just finished eating. I think I'm gonna get going, but this was such a phenomenal experience, and whatever ended up coming out of my mouth during my speech is what God intended. So I'm happy with it, I'm cool with it. Love these kids, wonderful kids. And I can't wait to be invited to another one, because this is my favorite thing in the world. Okay, I'm gonna start saying bye to people, but I'll talk to you soon. Anytime I speak anywhere, that's always the biggest thing, is I never know where to go. This worked out, they walked me over. But thank you, that was so sweet of you to walk me out. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the story.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. Hey, good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Keep in touch if you ever need anything.
Will do.
Hit me up.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Bye. See ya. Thanks again. Felt good. Felt great. Love it. Love it. It always, you like prepare for things and then they happen so fast, you know? Well, actually, I didn't really prepare for that at all. Just in the sense of like, oh, is that my car? Yeah. Why isn't it unlocking? My car's been doing this lately, man. What's going on here? We got a ring light on. Okay, that's off. Okay. She gave me an envelope, and she should not have done that because I told her that I do this for free. Because it helps me just as much as it could potentially help somebody else. I didn't want her to do that. Oh, give me some air, girl. Girl. I really just ate straight up cafeteria food. Like the good old days. I don't want anything is the point. Oh my God. Oh my God. I love these kids so much. I'm embarrassed. I'm in the student parking lot right now. You never see me crying. I love these kids, man. I love these kids. Every single time, it doesn't matter what district I'm in, what high school I'm in, I love these kids. And I just want them to make good decisions. Because some of my decisions still to this day are affecting me, you know? I'm still dealing with some really heavy shit because of my decision making when I was really, really young and really, really dumb. You know? Even relationships, especially relationships, you have to be so careful with who you allow in your life. Like, you need to understand me when I tell you this. You have to be careful with who you allow in your life. People you allow, the decisions you make, every single thing is another brick that you are laying towards the path you are taking. And you have to make good decisions, and these kids are good kids, and for them to act out a whole scene this morning of a car crash, and they were at school since 4 a.m. and stayed late yesterday, all so that they could perform this mock crash for the rest of the students. The amount of effort and work that was put in by these high school students, and being in this club and a part of this society that helps keep kids away from substance and bad decision making and alcohol, and I'm just so proud of them. I'm so proud of them for the decisions they choose to make and what they choose to do with their life while they're in high school, and they're all about to graduate, and they all have beautiful plans. And I'm just really proud of them. And my heart breaks for the ones who are living in alcoholic homes. A student cried in my arms this morning after my speech. She cried in my arms because she lives in an alcoholic home, and it was so evident of how much like pain That's like your safe space. For these kids that are just kids that are in these situations, my heart shatters. Just held her, but I gave her my number and I said, you call me in a heartbeat. I don't care if her parents are fighting and she calls me and I go get her and take her to get ice cream. Like, I am here. It couldn't feel any more of an honor to have the opportunity to be able to speak to these high schools and these students. What I provided them today was education, tools, and resources. Okay, friends, we are back home. I have quickly thrown on some comfy clothes. I'm gonna get some work done, but I just wanted to say one more time for all of you who watched this and essentially came with me today. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad that I got to take you guys with me and show you what these experiences look like to me, because this is such a big part of my life. Like, this is, in terms of like service, this is my favorite thing in the world. Like, my favorite thing in the world. I wish I could do it all the time. So again, I pray, you know, that I just receive more and more opportunities in 2024. If anybody watching this is local or is a teacher or any organization that you would like me to come and speak, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is in my bio on every one of my platforms. It is just my favorite thing. So anyway, thank you guys for coming along this morning. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you enjoyed the lead. Let me know what you guys think. And I'll talk. Bye, guys.